Welcome to Wheels Off, a show about the messy reality of the creative life. I'm Rhett Miller.
That's when it got wheels off. We started up and we ain't gonna stop. Oh, said I like it or not. That's when it got wheels off. Jared Mezzocchi is a two-time Obie Award-winning theater artist working as a director, multimedia designer, playwright, actor. He's taught, he's done everything in theater, I think, that you could possibly do. Now, realize I don't know much about theater, and I'm sure that becomes apparent during the course of this interview, but he is such an exciting, creative person. You know, the way that he sees things is so, you know what? Sorry, you be the judge. So as you listen to this interview, please know that I'm doing my best to keep up because, as I said, I don't have a lot of experience in the world of theater, but also I think you're going to get a lot out of this. It might not be an obvious episode maybe for you to listen to. Maybe you are a musician. Maybe you are a novelist, and those are the interviews that appeal to you more. But I promise you, there is so much useful, actionable wisdom imparted by Jared during the course of this interview that you will not regret the time you spend listening to Jared Mezzocchi on Wheels Off. Please welcome to Wheels Off, the great Jared Mezzocchi. Welcome to Wheels Off, Jared Mezzocchi. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much. I'm excited. I was trying to figure out if I had any other theater people like you. I've got some film directors and screenwriters and TV writers, but I feel like you are representing now here 220 episodes into my podcast an entire giant part of the creative world. So no pressure.
I'll try my best. Yeah.
Okay. But so what are you working on at the moment, and how does it light you up?
Yeah, I'm working on a bunch of different things. I just opened a show this weekend in Boston.
Nice.
That was a really heavy lift of a show about content moderation in the pandemic, and I had one actor on stage and four actors somewhere in the building zooming in and projected onto the stage. And as he is learning how to content moderate and kind of the darkness of the dark web, they become kind of ghosts in the system, and they become physically in the space. And so it was a really abnormal rehearsal process because we had to be in different rooms. It almost felt like the pandemic again, except on breaks you could come back to the same room together. So that is one of the projects that I just opened, and then I'm also about to start two different projects, one of which is a piece about the 1944 circus fire in Hartford. And I'm working on, it's a brand new work. It's been 2 years in the making with a playwright, and we go into rehearsals in about a month. And it's 12 Hartford local actors that I'm working with, and we're actually in a site-specific performance space. We're not in the theater that TheaterWorks Hartford typically is in. It's in a kind of foot guard hall, like an armory style thing. And so I don't know, I think like what makes me excited about these works is I love the impossible. I love plays that I love, like art making that feels like people are reading it saying, no, we can't do it. And then I can kind of like provide a space for confidence, calmness, lower the anxiety, and like really feeling safe to explore and experiment, in a lot of ways. And I'm starting to find that that's my groove over the last year and a half as I really just dove right into freelance directing fully, because I was a teacher and I was running a theater, and I kind of let it all go so that I could just let it rip in this last year. And I don't know, I've just been like, why do I say yes to the projects that I say yes to? And I think there's this like kind of underbelly of impossibility inside of it, and it really excites me to look at those types of projects and be the one to help steward it into existence, and finding the right people that in my darkest moments, being like, I don't know if this is possible, I've surrounded myself with the right people to be like, no, you said early on that this was, and now we believe in that, and let's keep going. And that kind of baton pass feels really good right now. So,
And like the show you just had go up in Boston,
yep.
it's your part in that is done now, right?
Yeah, so as a director in theater, you rehearse and then you go through tech rehearsals and you go through previews, which are like test audiences for a second. And once it opens, your contract is done because the show itself is locked completely. And the stage manager then takes it on and the show runs. It's running for another month now as I move forward in another project. So yeah, it's a bit strange to like get to opening, feel really good about it, and then like immediately say goodbye to the team that you were like, I loved working with you, and now keep doing it, but I'm gonna check in via, reports and stuff. But yeah,
And it feels like maybe there must be a bit of a mourning period for you.
there is. I used to not have that ability because I would immediately have to catch up with teaching or running the theater that I was running. And now that I actually do get to open a show and have a moment where I can breathe, I'm looking for really nice rituals to kind of like accept that there's grief to letting go of a project, and also there's like a strange 48 to 72 hour waiting period for like critical response to come out from it. And so those 3 days are really sacred to me to kind of check in with myself and say, am I happy with what I did? Does it matter if people like it or not? Does it, like those larger art making questions. And I live out in Newburgh, so one of the things I've been trying to do, though it's closed in the winter, is go for long walks in Storm King in the sculpture garden. And I did that for my last project in October, and that felt really good. Just walk around, breathe through it, review and reflect and say goodbye in a lot of ways, and be grateful that I had a chance to make it, and be grateful that I have a chance to say goodbye to it on my own terms.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Among your jobs you've done, I know is playwriting. You've written
Yeah.
plays, and like that is obvious content creation. Like you're creating the scenes and the characters in the world. And when a layperson like me thinks of directing, it feels a lot more like something that happens after the thing has been created. But it seems like the way you approach it, like you are creating so much of what is going on stage. Like you're a big part of the genesis
Yeah.
of the art.
Yeah, I like to think of it as in the same way as like music composition, and then you actually play it, and like what does it sound like, and what is the rhythm and the musicality of it, and how do you flesh it out? And even though the script may say pause, take a beat here, maybe you don't, and you're starting to make kind of artistic choices based on what you're looking at in front of you. And so I think like the art of the director, I think, is like seeing what it is on paper and lifting it into the imagined space of like what does it feel like, what is it doing for you, how is the audience taking it in, and really shaping that like a conductor would, or like a band leader would. I'm just thinking like I so that's one thing. The other thing is I was a designer. I was a projections designer for about 15 years. And so the design team, which is sound, light, video, costume, scenic, those are often put into motion about a year in advance of the show. And by first rehearsal, which is about 3 weeks out from tech rehearsal, those things are more or less like locked in and they understand what they're doing. And so they're just making it. I don't like making that way. And so one of the things that I really have encouraged at the theaters I work at is I want them more present. I want to kick up dust with them and shake the branches with them just alongside the actors, because I think that design is another character to it. So, in a way it's like ignoring the drummer and being like, no, the song is about the singing. And you're like, no, the drummer should be here too. We should all be rehearsing together. You can't just put that in as a track later. But that's how like theater is made. And I just find that that's like yeah, that's probably bringing continuity to the form, but it's also like pretty deadening, like you want to like be live in the space. And so that's one of the bigger things that I've been fighting for as a director is just making sure that like reconfiguring the budget to allow for the design team to be much more present so that it's not just actors rehearsing in an empty space for 3 weeks and then the design comes for 1 week and we just see what happens. I want them there longer and more present. So all of those things I think are like what I bring to the table as a director and really fight to make more present in the rehearsal process so that the work really feels intentional.
It's funny that so much of your work sounds like it's very technology forward. Like you're using a lot of what's only recently become available to us in theater, but your mindset is very human forward. Like you want these people involved. Do you think that there's a reason those two are connected?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of fear in the use of technology, and I think it's because people think technology just behaves on its own. But I think that like technology, like anything, like a paint, is only as good as the user of it and the receiver of it. And so I actually think it's very human. This piece that I just did in Boston, someone was like, "Oh, it's all about the internet. What does the internet look like to you in this show?" And I was like, "It just looks like close-ups of you and me. Like, this is
Yeah.
the internet. The internet's not the coding. The internet's our connectivity and our relationship to one another over a flatter screen. And like, what is love when you can only see each other through a green dot?" And so to me, it's less about like the spectacle of technology, and it's more about the empathy and the twist of empathy when technology is in between us. And so I like to saturate the space with the use of technology, but I use it as a question towards relationships and a question towards mortality, life, death, relationships. Those things are we're asking those same questions like we did hundreds of years ago, except the tools are a little different, and how we remain on Earth is very different these days than when Aristotle was writing things down. But it's just the use of the technology that's changed, not what our wants are of mortality, immortality, love. So I don't know. I think that theater has a phobia of technology because they want it to be sacred, people and candles and the sun beaming through, but that's not the mirror that's held up to society today. That people are walking in the middle of the streets with their phones, almost getting in accidents, and like we need to reflect that. And that's not to say technology is going to win and take over. It's just to say like, look at us. We look a little funky right now. Let's take a breath and look up and see each other eye to eye. And that's not about letting go of technology. It's actually being like, I'm going to understand my use of it and put it down and look at you to say I love you. So that's the kind of work I'm really interested in, and it's very technology forward, but it's not to just because I love I actually don't like technology. I am obsessed with it. I have my problems with it, but I want to investigate it to understand how to better my relationships to the world and to one another. So
It's so funny. So I want to know about the beginning of all of this for you. And I mean, you're young enough where technology existed in a form, their computers existed when you were a kid, but I don't imagine you were dreaming of being, like a barrier breaking theater director. But was there a moment where you had an idea that this was the thing for you? Was there an epiphany moment?
yeah, it was. I double majored in college in film and theater, and I both faculty and both departments were saying like at some point you've got to pick one. And I felt like I was really good at both. I really loved theater. I really loved film, and my sophomore year of college, my dad passed away very unexpectedly, And I wrote a eulogy. That was the year that Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind came out, and that had a deep impact on the way I thought about my brain and about the world. And I think at that moment about grief and things disappearing on you very unexpectedly. And so I wrote a eulogy that had kind of a that style of storytelling in it. And both departments were at the funeral, and the faculty came up and said, "You should turn it into a film, or you should turn that into a play." And in that moment, I was like, "Oh, what if I did, what if like both were on stage?" And there was a bit of a like, film is the ability to hold on to something and it never changes. You can watch it again and again. And theater is something that you can pretend is the same, but it's always different, and it's ephemeral and temporal. And what is the relationship between the two when someone is dealing with losing somebody and dying and death? And so I wrote a piece, and I produced it my senior year of college, that then got me into grad school at Brooklyn College. And then I was introduced to the whole world of multimedia theater making, but I had this like deeply personal reason for it. And I also was constantly wrestling with the fact that the only real thing that I have of my dad is a voicemail of his that said the Subaru is available, is ready to be picked up at the car dealership, and it's like 7 seconds. But my mom still saves it on her phone and will listen to it and like well up. And it's like, how interesting that like a voicemail about your car is everything you got. And it makes me think about like when technology allows you to have that as a gift, savor it. And so I think like all of those things, and I was 19 when he passed, and it was just a very impressionable moment, and I've sort of just held on to that in everything that I do, and that's why I think the earlier question, I immediately go to like mortality versus immortality. Film is very immortal, and theater is very mortal, and what happens when they clash, and isn't that grief? Isn't that longing? I don't know. It's all of the human condition mixed up in that, and so I think I've just always wanted to explore that, and I people ask, should I do film? And I sort of love being in the mortal side of that conversation by being in a very temporal art form of theater, just because that's more fragile to me, and I like living in that, and it's a little bit more imperfect, and I like living in that too. So yeah, so I think it all stems from there. I know that, and every year I sort of am asking a different question, but it's around that central, condition of it all. Yeah.
It's funny, the ubiquity these days of the question of AI. If I'm talking to TV writer friends, musician friends, like every sort of aspect of all of what we're doing, and the question is always these days, how big of a threat is AI to our livelihoods, to whatever. And I feel like for me it comes up a lot that like AI cannot get up on a stage and shake its ass. And I think about like
Right.
when you talk about theater, it makes me think the same thing. Like it's a moment in a communal moment in a room full of people there gathered for one reason, to do something that's inherently human, and it can't ever be replaced. And what a great job you're doing, keeping this thing alive, celebrating it, acknowledging the technology that we're dealing with, but still like humanity. Oh, the humanity.
Yeah. 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 There's so many people asking that question of like, what's your take on AI right now? And I sort of just batch it in the same question of like, let it push up against humanity, and let it push up against what makes a human most human. And maybe pushing up against it will help us understand our own value system and our own strength. Like you're saying, AI can't get up on a stage and shake its ass. Like this is, and that's helpful to know, because maybe 5 years ago I wouldn't recognize that is what makes me special. Is I can just spontaneously hop up on stage and dance. And so I sort of see it as an opportunity to strengthen our identity and our definition of what defines us, and what makes us human, and also letting us sort of confront how much of our day is not celebrating what makes us most human, but it's us sort of like falling in line with what makes us more machine like. And so maybe that's why we're so afraid, because we understand our susceptibility to just becoming a part of that conveyor belt, and it will take a lot more courage to be unique and spontaneous and go against that when culture, capitalism, academia, like everything is sort of like questioning how close we can get to that without it breaking moral codes, when actually we should be going the other way and saying, well, what if we put it all down and light a fire and tell a story, you know? And so I don't know. I sort of have been enjoying it as a means of friction, you know, and as a means of being like, well, what makes me special? What makes us special? And how do we make work about that, you know? Yeah.
I love that. I think you addressed this some when you were talking about sort of your experience as a 19-year-old falling in love with this, figuring it out. But as you go on in your life and in your career, and you encounter self-generated obstacles, you know, the things that keep us from being our best self or our best artist or whatever, the insecurities, imposter syndrome, success guilt, these things come up a lot. What have you figured out to keep going? What have you figured out that gets you past those obstacles? Strategy.
That is like the question of my year right now. You know, like what I used to do is go teach and do budgets for a theater and be like, well, I'm feeling a little down about that bad review, or I'm feeling a little stressed about this, so let me go distract myself over here. And I don't have those anymore. And so I'm sort of left to my own dwelling of it. And I think this is why, like, after I make a work or during the making of the work, I have been trying really hard to just like spend a little extra time laying in bed, spend a little extra time slowing down, walking to the theater, and just like clocking my own sense of self. That's been a big phrase this year for me, is something that I didn't realize like actually deserves calisthenics. To like, you don't just have your sense of self and then like put it in your back pocket and that's it for the rest of life. Like, you can lose it very quickly. And I think that part of theater that is so full of hurdles for me is that its entire existence and success and reputation is based off of other people viewing it and telling you that it's good. And but it doesn't have to be that way. And I think like ultimately I want to make the work I want to make. And if, you know, and I think about the story of Van Gogh, Vincent Van Gogh, who like died not knowing he was good. Everyone was telling him he had too thick of a line and he was an amateur and he didn't deserve any. And then here we are. And it's just like, so I don't know, like, should we put so much weight and value into the eye of the beholder? Or maybe what we are meant to do is just make the things that our spirit is telling us to make. And that's easy to say here, but it's really hard to do. And so I think I have shifted my focus to be less about making sure everyone in the room is happy with what I'm doing and more about just what I need to do, the emotional push-ups and sit-ups every morning and night, to make sure that my muscle is strong to be able to withstand someone quietly in the back of the room whispering about a thing that they're thinking about that I'm doing that maybe they don't really like and they hope that I fix, or like the things you hear in the room, you know. And so it's like, yeah, my values and getting over those hurdles is about not the moment of confrontation, but like long before that, what am I doing to strengthen my muscle to make sure that I can walk straight through that gauntlet and be like, I am making this work, damn it. And I want to, and I trust myself. And if you don't like it, then maybe you're the wrong producer on this, or maybe, you know, like I'm doing this and I am making my product, and I need to surround myself with the people that help strengthen that. And again, it's easy to say, it's really hard to do, and it's really hard to confront if you've had a misstep and you've invited the wrong person in the room. But that has been my chief focus this year, is make sure my muscles are strong and make sure my room is good, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like, I think that solves most things.
Yeah.
But it's like that work is kind of an always work at work thing. It's never like I did it, now I can enjoy this week, you know. It's kind of a like everyday thing, and you know, it's my brother is a runner, and he trained for marathons, and it's just like you might be tired, but you still got to like figure out like today I'm going to run 5 miles instead of 10, but I'm going to run. And like keeping that muscle up so that you don't just like run a good 10 miles one day and say I'm done till the marathon, you know. It's sort of like an ongoing thing, and I think emotions and like artistic fervor is no different than the muscles in your thigh and calf. You just have to keep at it, and I think that I don't know. I don't have an answer to that other than I know that's what I should be doing. And sometimes when I feel it working, I write that down and say, that's the training then. I should keep doing that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have this thing that I know a lot of musicians really suffer from, but I wonder if it translates into your disciplines as well? The people pleasing, like worrying about making everybody happy all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's like it's a really challenging space because also as a director, like it's not like I edit a thing and then press play and show people like, what do you think of my cut? It's like you're also dealing with people on stage who are in it and are making choices. And sometimes they make a bad choice and then the artistic director comes to me and they're like, what do you do? Like, why did you choose that? And it's like, well, they just did that tonight. And now I have to figure out how to help them so that they can not do that. And the worst thing you can do as a director is be like, hey, I need you to cry right here on this line. Instead, you have to like build that like emotional landscape so that if they cry or not in that moment, it's still authentic. So there's this like light touch to the thing that everyone looks to you as if you own it, but you don't. You're like a barometer to it, and you're like guiding the thing forward. And inside all of that to me is the fight against people pleasing, because it's like it's so easy to be like, you're right, it's my fault, I suck, I don't know how to do this, I don't, when actually it's a like, I don't know, it's something totally different. I grew up Roman Catholic
Yeah.
too, so like that really doesn't help this cause. I like I'm like constantly just like hoping everybody likes me, and hoping everyone likes my work. I have found that when people really like a work of mine, to not get caught up in that, because if you let yourself get caught up in that, then you need to let yourself get caught up in the people really not liking your work. So it's about like keeping that like soft focus right in the middle for me, because I used to just go up and up and up, and then that meant down and down and down. And I one other thing to the people pleasing thing that I think about is in the pandemic, I realized how people pleasing I was, because I would make something online and then I would turn off Zoom or Vimeo, and I'd be alone in my room and there was no lobby to walk through. And I quickly realized how much I was codependent on the lobby of people, like walking past people and then be like, oh man, that was awesome. And sort of gauging that, or even the applause. And during the pandemic, I had none of that, but I was still making work. And I remember turning off a Zoom after a live performance I had made, and I remember just thinking to myself, like, did I like that? And I was like, I loved that. I loved what I was. It was. I'm so proud of it. And I'm glad and then the New York Times wrote about it and like loved it too. And I remember my collaborator called me being like, it is good. And I was like, but I knew it beforehand. Like I didn't need to read that. It sure felt good. And I remember being like, ooh, this is a practice I should get more serious about, because that lobby is a really dangerous space. Because it you know, I don't know. I'm not a Star Trek fan. I like Star Wars. And one of my students once brought in a work that was super based in Star Trek. And I remember thinking like, I don't like Star Trek, but should that determine whether or not they get an A? Or because if they are the maker of the next whatever Star Trek is, and I as a teacher say I didn't like that, then like we don't have Star Trek. I don't know, like, and like I don't watch it, I don't like it, but so I'm always like really careful around that for others, and now I'm trying to figure out how to be careful with that for me. It's a big problem. And it doesn't go away. I think it's just like it's always there. It's just how I embrace it and tolerate it, so that it doesn't skew my judgment as an artist and at making things, which it has a lot in the past.
It's
So
funny. This really reminds me of a quote that resonated with me a few years ago when I heard it. That it was attributed to some football coach, but the quote was, "Outcomes are distortions."
mm,
And my understanding of it was that it's what you're saying. Like, we can't control how they feel about it, whether our team wins or loses. We can only control the moment we're in, the process, what we're doing. I don't know. Do you feel like that?
yeah, I love that. There's also I stumbled upon a graduation speech by Roger Federer as
Oh yeah,
well,
it's
and
great.
he do you know which one I'm talking about? Or
Recent. It was great.
it's basically, yeah, he basically was like, look, I'm like the one of the greatest in the world, and I'm gonna totally botch the stats, but he was like, of all of the sets I have played, I have won 56%. And of all of those points within those sets, I have won like 52%. He's like, what that means is, as the world champion, as the world leader in tennis, I lose about half of the points. Like, and that's at world champion level, which just means that I win a point, now on to the next point. I lose a point, now on to the next point. If you dwell on that bad hit, I don't understand why that even matters, if at the top of this is a leader who can only win about 52% of those points anyway.
Yeah.
So just get back up and go, and know that like 50% of the shots are gonna fail.
Yeah.
And it's how you learn from that to win the next is great. And if you lose the next, then win the next. Learn from that. Um, it that totally tracks. I totally love those kind of quotes. I mean, sports are great for that,
Yeah.
because it's like you screw up on your first play and you still have 55 minutes left in the game. You can't sit on that. Yeah.
The Winter Olympics are on right now, and the difference between the best and the worst in any competition of like a downhill skiing is 1/10 of a second.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's good. And I think it's like easier when you're dealing with time and points,
Measurables.
which is, yeah, like real deliverables and measurables of like the word outcome is so murky in art and music and theater, and like I don't even know what an outcome is. And it's like, was that truthful? Was that authentic?
Yeah.
Were we living in the impulse? Were we like those are the things I'm interested in, because that's like the immediacy of art. It's like you're just in it, and at any given point, everyone can get sucked into that. And like, what is that? I don't know. There's something about that is why I do what I do. And so to think about the standing ovation at the end is such a misnomer to the reasons we choose to do this.
Or worse, when the producer or the record label starts talking about sales,
Yeah,
when that becomes the equivalent to the points, and then that's the measurable. And then, I'm on Elektra Records for all the years, and Third Eye Blind has hits. We don't have hits. So what are they, a million times better than I am? Or
right,
whatever it is. So it's,
right.
so I know theater has hits and not hits as well. It,
Well, and it's like, we're in such a space of sales. So like commercial, I don't like commercial theater. So like, why is my rubric the same as that?
yeah.
I I used to be like, I want to climb the ladder to Broadway, and like I do hope I direct on Broadway. I do hope I make work on Broadway, but like that's not that has nothing to do with why I love what I do. It helps with the bills, and it helps with kind of the reputation and fame of it all. But I don't know, like at a moment in which I had to choose whether I wanted to continue teaching and have a sustainable income, or get that out of the way of why I'm here on this earth, I'd much rather just be making, like it just changes everything. It has nothing to do with the money at the end of the day. It has to do with like how what makes me happiest.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, record sales and ticket sales aren't really the point. And maybe that's like the joy of being a director is you leave before you even know the ticket sales. Like you leave on opening and you're just like, I am really happy with that product. Good luck selling it. Good luck doing whatever you need to do to distribute it. But for me, like I made the thing and I can like pivot and turn and be like, that was awesome. And I did everything I could to do the best I could, you know? Yeah.
That's cool. And I love what you say about the room. And you know, I feel like that helps with all of it because, you know, you're enjoying your life by working with people that you like. James Gunn, the director, I'm friends with him, gotten to be on multiple sets of his, and they are such happy environments, even though the weight of the world is on them expectation-wise. But it's because he has a very strict no assholes policy. Like he will not work with assholes.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's a huge thing, and I actually like, you know, when tech is happening and I have a stage manager being like, we're only on page 10 and at this rate. And I was like, well, we're not pages. I don't know, like let's get that stress out of here, because if we are now stressed, then in order to make good work, we first have to de-stress and then make the work. So let's not get stressed. And we have more energy to make the work, you know. And it's really important. I actually start every rehearsal off with everyone in the room, technicians included, stopping what they're doing, standing up, and just taking a breath together. And then I can say, look, we've done something together already. We succeeded, and it's just the first second, you know. Yeah. So let's start on this, and as opposed to everyone just being in their spaces and then being like, we're beginning, and then everyone's kind of colliding with their own anxieties, as opposed to like, hey guys, can we do something together? Yeah, we can. We can breathe. We can take a breath, and like, you know, fighting the culture of urgency is like really important, because it's not about finishing. There is no finish. It's just making the best choices in the moment. And I often find when you slow that down and everyone's feeling really good, you sort of speed up. Like things just start to like domino effect, and you get it done. So let's just have fun while we're doing it. And how cool to say this is our job. You know?
I love that. I feel like there's so much actionable wisdom in the last however many minutes we've been talking. I wonder if you would try to distill it and imagine speaking to like a 21-year-old version of yourself, and what advice you might give that young person.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the people-pleasing aspect of it, and be like, you know, everything you're gonna make is already inside of you, and it's just about making sure by the end of your time here on this earth, you've done as much of that list as possible. So let everything else get out of the way, and just start like making the things that are already within you, you know. And I think if I really trusted that at the top, I wouldn't have stalled for years in and years out of different people telling me I was going in the right direction or not. And I don't know, I feel like everyone was put on this earth, and we need to, and inside of us is a batch of great ideas, and as we experience the world, that like gives us the additional ingredients to make the soup. And but none of that is like right place, right time, even though that's what everyone says. It's actually like, I don't know, trust everything that's within and just start making, and don't worry, you know.
Boy, it seems like it's come up a lot, the idea of other people's input being problematic, you know. I think that's great. I think that's just super useful. I wonder if the quote, the Sartre quote, "L'enfer c'est les autres," you know, hell is others.
Yeah.
applies.
It really is. Well, and it's also, I think the thing that I learned later in life is that doesn't just mean the people who are like, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's also the people like, that's a great idea, but you yourself are like, is it? You know, like it's actually not. It's just being led by other people's instincts, and letting go of your own is the problem, you know, that I've been trying to deal with. So it's the good and the bad. And I was always looking out for the bad, but actually it's like both. People celebrating you too hard in the wrong direction too. Is a big thing. So yeah, hell is other people. That's a good one.
Well, somebody else had a quote I was thinking about. Other people are the worst.
Yeah. Totally.
Oh man, this has been so great. Thank you so much, Jared, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh my God, totally. This is awesome. Thank you.